We have with us today, everyone, Costa. I'm sorry, I'm not even going to try to say your last name. Poulopoulos. Did I say it right? Poulopoulos? Yay! I should know. I should know how to say it. So Costa Poulopoulos, he is the president of Korea this year, or chair, sorry. And he will be providing us with an update to what Korea's been up to on their end and what we can expect from them. And then we're going to open it up to some questions. So write down your questions as we go. Again, use the little raise hand feature, which is located under the participants tab. So you click participants and then hit the little raise hand icon, which is a blue hand, so that I know that you want to talk. If you're just sitting in front of your screen and waving your hands, I'm probably not going to see you because I only see a couple people at a time. So try to do it that way. And yeah, I'll pass it off to Costa.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Rose. And honestly, thank you for the opportunity to actually engage with your members on your board. I have an affinity. I think your board, I mean, we're just down the highway. I'm in London, Ontario, and you've all been great supporters. And I just want to preface this meeting with start off, but whatever you need, you know that you have a direct line. I know many of you on a personal level, and it's an honor to be invited to address you. So there's nothing there's nothing that I've got that's going to be a presentation wide from a presentation perspective, other than a conversation. And there's some updates as to what your National Association Korea is doing on behalf of your members and all members across the country, where we are, where we're going, where we've been. And you know what, as you mentioned, whatever questions you may have, I will do my best to answer them. And if I don't have the answers, I'm not going to make up an answer. I'll promise that I'll get back to you by end of day, back to your group, and you can share any questions that you need answered that I can't come up with the right answer or the correct answer. So having said that, look, we all know that this pandemic has affected all of our lives, from the way that we shop, from the way that we work out and stay fit, from the way that we engage, and more importantly for us in our profession, the way we conduct real estate sales, and it's impacted us, and we know that you know, it was a major adjustment, and the National Association is aware of that. And so just want to set from the get-go that we understand at the National Association, this is our association, your association, and we're taking your interests at heart, and we're doing everything that we can on different points and different levers to make sure that our members are captured on many fronts. And so a few points, I mean, there's 6 points I want to touch on. COVID-19, as I'm mentioning, we'll talk about advocacy, about technology, about a reputation, and a few more other points, and then we'll open it up. And at any point, if somebody wants, if I'm saying something, because this is more of a dialogue than a presentation, just interrupt or just say I have a question on the point you just made. So let's make this as fluid as possible, and we'll start off with the COVID-19 communications hub. I mean, throughout this pandemic, communication is probably one of the most important aspects that we have as realtors from all levels. If you're a realtor on the street, realtor member, if you're a broker owner, if you're a brand, if you're a local association or provincial association, which, by the way, I want to send a big shout out and kudos to President Sean Morrison and Tim Hudak and the entire AREA team. They have done an amazing job on behalf of Ontario Realtors, and we work with them closely, and my hat off to them. But and we're going to continue that, and it's about partnerships, and there's a perfect example of how we're interacting with each other to make sure that all of our members, our mutual members, are benefiting from our joint efforts. So with communications, probably one of the most important things right now, and I've said before that, you know, real estate was always location, location, location. Well, in this pandemic period that we're all facing with COVID-19, it's communication, communication, communication. Communicate with our client, customers, consumers, communicate with realtor members if we're an association at all levels, and make sure that we're making some sense and providing some clarity and some direction in this craziness that's happening. So Korea has created the COVID-19 communications hub, and it's located on korea.ca on the website. And there's really important information there. And I know that Korea sends out weekly emails to all members across the country. You know, I really say that if you, in the past kind of deleted or they go to spam, look at your junk folder, because there's really pertinent information that is communicated to all members. And for some reason, if you haven't had it, go to this CREA.ca, go on the COVID-19 or the coronavirus hub. It's a standalone spin-off dynamic site. Dynamic meaning that it's changing all the time, because we all know how fluid the situation is. And sometimes it not only does it change from week to week with the emergency orders and what's opening and what's not, but sometimes day by day at all levels. So that CREA.ca COVID-19 dynamic site is full of information. And what we created was a three-phase, a ready, a set, and a go phase in the COVID-19 hub. And the ready is what to expect, as we're in lockdown, as we were in lockdown. How do we stay ready? How do we stay relevant? How do we protect ourselves and our consumers and safety and following the guidelines? The set is as we're getting out of the, and as markets are opening up, as provinces and markets are opening up with provincial government opening and public health agencies throughout the country, what to prepare for. So it's ready, set, it's opening up, how we're changing things, and how we're, with the virtual and videos, and there's just a lot of great information. I'm not going to tell you all of them there, but I would implore you to go on that website. And then the go phase is provided both for our members and for consumers, where there's statistical information, which is very important for us as Realtor members, and to show consumers, what the market is doing and what to prepare for coming out of this. So it's a ready, set, go approach. And so that's on the COVID-19 front. It's something that is extremely valuable, and it's dynamic. It is constantly changing as things are changing. One thing that we're really proud of, and I'm personally proud of, and I give tremendous praise to the CREA staff, is on the advocacy front, and the GR team that has been working tirelessly with government at all levels, and different agencies within the government, to make sure that when government has put out these stimulus packages, that in fact they captured and encompassed the Realtor member and our businesses and our brokers. And so, right from the onset, the government, and again, kudos to the government for putting out a stimulus package of this magnitude, to have that kind of fluidity and stimulus packages in the marketplace, and to make sure that the banks were fluid and kept going. Normally, this type of stimulus, economic stimulus, fluidity, monetary package policy would take 6 to 18 months to put out. And to their credit, and this is not a partisan thing. I mean, all levels of government, all parties work together collectively to put out this within a couple of weeks. And so with that, that's the good news. The downside of that is, because it happened so quickly, and Tim Hudak has said this before, it was more of a ready, fire, aim approach. So they knew they had to do something. They put out tremendous amount of stimulus package and put it out there. And that's where we came in at the National Association when we reviewed it. And initially, like for the CERB, it didn't really capture the Realtor member. And so we went to government. The entire team was talking at all levels with the minister assistants, with ministers, and ensured that, hey, listen, with independent contractors, how we get paid and how we get our commissions from previous, you're not going to capture. So they tweaked it, and to the credit and to the hard work, many of our members are now included and benefiting from the CRB that was rolled out. So there are 4 packages, stimulus packages, that the government has put out and rolled out, and we were instrumental in giving feedback and adjusting and amending and lobbying and advocating on behalf of members to say, hey, you're missing the mark and you're not catching all these. So the CRB is one of them. I'm sure we're all familiar with it. The second one is the Canada the wage subsidy, and that's for brokerages and getting 75% of salaries paid to employees. And again, there's a perfect example where initially when that rolled out, it was based on you had to pick a plan, either an accrual method or a cash method. And what that means is, so it was only from March, April, and I believe May, or a very short period of time. But the reality of it is that when we're making transactions and closing transactions that are coming in March, April, and May, these transactions were actually written back in December, January, sometimes November, February, and now the cash is coming in. And so we're saying that that doesn't give a true depiction. By the time you close out this period, that brokerages or employers, well, in our world, in the real estate profession world, we'll actually then be seeing reduced transactions in March, April, and May, which won't take effect on revenues 30, 60, 90 days later. So the government listened to us. We had many meetings, and I know even at volunteer level, we had meetings, not only the Korea staff and the Korea team. And based on that kind of feedback, they've extended the wage subsidy program to go longer, so to make sure that we're captured in that as well. So, again, that's a perfect example of advocating. And all of these situations, just to be clear, and we actually ask all members and all brokers of record, brokerages, managers, brands, to keep in touch with us and let us know. Because if any of these programs are not working for our members, and I have to tell you, we've had tremendous input from members, and that's how we're advocating, because we're realizing, oh wait, this doesn't really apply. And with that bit of information, that's how we're going back to government to make the tweaks that are appropriate and necessary for us to be involved in these subsidy programs. So that's the second one, and then the third one is the Canada Emergency Business Account, and again, that account, that plan was for businesses that had salaries. First, it said $50,000 or more. Then they've adjusted it to $10,000 in salaries. But the problem was that you needed a T4 or T4A expense to show that you paid employees. And again, a lot of our members, a lot of large teams that employ or pay out. I mean, look, we're in an industry where every compensation plan is different. It's not one set. Some of their independent contractors, they pay them on a transaction. Others pay them on a monthly fee as independent contractors. They don't provide a T4. So we were missing that opportunity where you can actually, in that plan, the business loan is where the government will secure at 0% interest $40,000. And if you pay it back by December 2022, it's zero interest. They will forgive 10,000 of that. So if you pay back 30,000, the 10 is forgivable. And so what they tweaked was that you no longer have to provide a T4 or T4A, or what that requirement was for employees to show that you actually had an employee expense. All you have to provide now are expenses that are in excess of $40,000, I believe. Again, 40 or 50,000. I mean, all of these are on our website, on the korea.ca website. So that's opened up a tremendous amount of options for a lot of small brokerages or teams, large teams that can show that they have a sub franchise and that they can run with that type of setup. And the last one was the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance, where the government says that, look, to give some kind of release some pressure from tenants, commercial tenants, if you pay 25% of your rent and the landlord forgives 25% of the rent, the government will absorb the 50% of the rent. So really the tenant would only be paying 25%. The landlord is going to be getting a 25% discount. And again, that's a prime example of how we've been involved in all of these with feedback and how it applies to our members. So really proud to say on the advocacy front, the Korea team, the Korea staff, the volunteers have done an amazing job, and it's changing all the time. And so I'm going to put ask out a shout out to all of you. If there's something that's not working, please let us know. You can let me know directly, or you can let Felicia and the team know there, and they'll send it up to Korea. But the only way that we're making these adjustments and these changes is when we hear from members, on the street that are saying this isn't really capturing me. So anyway, proud about that. Sorry, was there a question? I can't really see if there's a question, so you're gonna have to interrupt me if there is.
I was just gonna say, it amazes me how quickly you guys jumped into action and how quickly staff was able to advocate and you know, it was, everything just happened so quickly, and you know, so props and shout outs to you guys over there for, you know, jumping into action as quickly as you did. I imagine, talk to me a little bit about the challenges, because it's not a one size fits all across Canada, right? Like what's happening in Quebec is very different to what's happening in Manitoba. And were there any challenges on your end with creating those guidelines, or coming
Yes.
up with something that's...
So Rose, thank you first of all for the comment, and yes, it's wonderful that, you know, the team did an amazing job, and I give all credit to the CREA staff on spearheading that. It is different as far, the advocacy front is the same across Canada, because all these plans are national in national nature, and we wanted to make sure that it doesn't matter if you're a realtor in Quebec or if you're a realtor in BC or in Newfoundland, that we make sure that the plans that have the subsidy plans that rolled out will apply to our realtor members. However, you're correct in, you know, all markets are different. Quebec was the last market to actually, they're just starting to open up and allow real estate services to conduct real estate sales. I mean, they were for the longest time shut down, whereas here in Ontario, real estate services were deemed essential. And then again, kudos to the OREA team for that, because they were pushing, it was a provincial, see, all of these are on a provincial level, because it's provincial government that dictates and sets policy as to when somebody's going to open, who's essential and who's not essential. So, I mean, case in point, in Manitoba, they are now allowing, in the province of Manitoba, to conduct in-person open houses. Now, there's a tremendous amount of parameters and how-tos on that. Only 2 people allowed in a property. There's just such a set rule of that. And so, as we know, when governments, provincial governments across the country, were starting to say, look, with this COVID-19 pandemic and crisis and disease, we have to avoid in-person meetings whenever possible. We heard from our provincial partners and quickly said, okay, we're pulling the feature of the open houses on realtor.ca, and quickly adapted to, and that's the next part, I'm glad you segued into this, the technology, about doing virtual real-time live open houses. And so we pulled we turned off the functionality of allowing any kind of open house to be posted on realtor.ca and only allowing the virtual ones. And I have to tell you, it's been unbelievable, you know, how quickly we came up with that solution, because to have to get technologically that ability to go. And now realtor.ca supports all streaming platforms on realtor.ca listings. So, you know, there's Zoom, there's Facebook Live, there's Instagram Live, there's whatever platforms and more platforms are coming on, whatever is available. Just to know, the good news is that sessions and leads on realtor.ca are coming back now. And they're coming back to normal numbers. And we've had 7,000, over 7,600 live stream open houses from over 1,500 realtors since we launched that feature back on April the 7th. Also, 24% of all listings now include embedded videos or 3D tours. So this is a functionality that you know what, here's a perfect situation where you know, there's a pandemic, there's a crisis going on, and you know, we're actually looking for ways to navigate through it, and something good has come out of it with the virtual technologies that we have now created, which will probably stay post-pandemic. You can't see, because people are buying into this, and consumers are liking the fact that they have this ability to do a virtual live open house and don't physically have to get you know, into their vehicle and at least for the initial view of the property. So this is the kind of technology that is here to stay. Consumers are buying into it. Consumers are indicating that they like this type of technology. And so, you know, agents are adapting to it, and more of our listings are featuring this type of video and 3D embedded in their listings. And so, I mean, that's a good thing. I can tell you that, again, if you look at what we're doing from a technological perspective, or let's talk about the realtor.ca and the numbers. So right now, the good news is across the board, and this is kind of the unique thing, that each market is very individualistic, let's say, and each market is different. And what we're seeing is that prices seem to be holding pre-pandemic prices, and in some markets, a lot of markets, prices are increasing year over year from what they were last year. Now, the reason for that is, yes, there are fewer listings that have come on, during March and April. We're seeing now a steady increase in May, and those numbers will be out, I believe, June 15th. All the stats will be coming out. And it's very optimistic as to see what's happened in May. And so the rationale about why the price is the same, and I'm sure you all know that, and I'm not sure about Brantford, but with your stats, yes, there were fewer listings. And if we're talking about, I'll talk to London, if there were 50% fewer listings, there were also 50% fewer buyers that were willing to engage in the market. So everything stayed relative. If you had X number of listings pre-pandemic and there was, buyers, more buyers looking for inventory, if you reduce that by 50% and that by 50%, there's the same supply and demand, just on a short or a smaller numbers. And so that's one of the rationale. But we're seeing now that listings are coming back on. There seems to be a lot more activity, and it's kind of uniformed across the country. And we have numbers with the home price index, the MLS home price index, which actually is different than an average price. When you look at a home price index, it's like comparing apples to apples, instead of comparing, an apple is an apple and an orange is an apple and we're all fruit. Well, it's different because each market is different. And so we're able to actually drill down now and compare, two-story, two-car garage in this neighborhood in a specified market. And the feedback so far, and you'll see those coming out in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, is very optimistic. And so things are looking up in the real estate world, and not talking about other people's numbers, and we'll talk about the numbers and the data that we have at our disposal, on the feedback that we're getting from boards and associations. And so that's a very positive thing as to what's going on.
So Costa,
yes.
with what CMHC put out recently, and I think they were projecting house prices should drop 18%. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. That's not what I'm seeing here in Brantford. It sounds like it's not quite what you're seeing. Is there any type of advocacy that's going to be going around, that CREA is going to be putting forward to try to work with them, to, instead of adding more red tape and encouraging the real estate market? It seems like they took a step back and made it just more challenging. So are you guys doing anything?
Yeah, and Rose, I'm glad that you mentioned that. And honestly, we're not going to comment about other agencies' numbers because we're not privy to their data. But I can share with you the data that we're getting, and it's HPI, and those are real numbers that are not average price. Where you say, okay, what's an average home price in London? Well, I don't know. The average price is, let's say, $475, if that's the number. But what does that mean? What's a 3-bedroom ranch with a 1-car garage, and a 2-story, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 2-car garage with finished basement? They're not average. They're not the same. And so that's where we're getting our data, is actually drilling down and actually capturing information. And all of our data is showing that, prices are holding steady, and in a lot of markets, there's a lot of optimism. Let's just put it that. I don't want to share numbers that haven't been released yet, but they will be released. And so to combat what they're saying, we're not going to take on another agency, but we know that our numbers are very optimistic. I'm glad to hear that you just shared that you're not seeing that in Brantford. I'm going to tell you, if you polled the associations across this country, they're going to share exactly that opinion. Is like, well, we're not seeing that. Where are they getting their numbers from? So that's the good news, and you'll see that happening in May. I'm just going to share with you so some key traffic numbers. So numbers overall were declining at the end of March and April, but we see things going back to normal. So we're actually hoping that our numbers right now, based on what's happening in May, for 2020, by the close of the year, will be greater than last year's numbers. So right now there's 291 million website visit, 12% increase year over year. This is on realtor.ca. 983 million property views. That's 112,000 views per hour. 50 million users from across the globe. So the international people that they log in, 50 million for Canadian real estate, 8.8 million realtor profile views, 2.9 million leads for realtors. That's 27 leads every 5 minutes. 2.9, almost 3 million leads to realtors, where a consumer logs on and then they click on the realtor and they say, can you tell me more? I mean, a real legitimate lead. And 1.6 million searches for realtors on realtors or through realtor.ca. So things are very optimistic, and it's not just, there's data to back that up, and you'll see the data and you'll be able to share that data. And I mean, that's the one thing that we're saying. Look, when I'm kind of jumping ahead, well, the next point is reputation. We've all, for those of us that have been around even 2008 and before, and this is my 33rd year. I mean, I've been involved in many recessions, many previous crises that were happening, and all of them were frightening at the time. All of them, they were uncertain and they had never hit before. They were unprecedented, and so this is no different. I mean, this is a larger scale, but here are a few things that have remained the same throughout all crises in the past and all of the recessions in the past, and that's the consumer's need for expertise, and the consumers need to have a trusted advisor that they can go to. And so that's where we're positioning ourselves when we have this data, because it's all our data across the country, MLS data, and we're getting actual factual data that's real, and it's being optimistic. We're going to help when post-pandemic, and it's happening already, things are increasing. Consumers are reaching out to realtors as their trusted advisors, as the professionals, as the experts, to help them navigate through all of this. So there's a lot of good information that's coming out, and it's going to be coming through your local association, and it's great information to share. And that's why I say go to the CREA website. There's so much information there that you can actually start repurposing for yourself on your own sites, and be the expert that we are. And if you want information, there's all the statistical stuff is there for us. So yeah, so reputation.
I'm going to ask another question, Costa.
Please.
Tying into both reputation and technology, something that's come to our attention at a board level is the virtual open houses. We have a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people are promoting live open houses from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and it's just a pre-recorded video that's going and going and going. Was that the intention from CREA's perspective, and who's looking to enforce that? Is that a CREA thing, or is that a board level thing?
That's a great question, Rose. This is the first I've heard of that, so I mean I could look into that, but the live open house is actually a live open house. That's what it is. It's me walking through a property using safe protocols and say, okay, we're live now. It's, you know, I mean, 9 to 9, if you're putting a live virtual, then, you know, somebody should be there live from 9 to 9. That's a long day to open a house. But, you know, if you're doing 2 to 4 and it's live, then you should go around, you're ready, you hit the start button, it starts rolling and you're live, and people are joining in, and you're walking through like you're showcasing a house. Here's the kitchen, here's the granite, here's the stuff. And if there's a question, and you know, with other buyer's agent, you know what, there was a great how-tos on how to do a live open house, how to conduct one, and that's on the CREA site. And that was thanks to, I believe it's the Kamloops Real Estate Board, that they put out a fantastic how-to and what questions you should ask and what you should tell your sellers beforehand if you're the listing agent, and what you should be asking if you're the buyer's agent. You should be part of with your buyers, you should log on together. Just great information. And so all of this stuff is on a CREA website. And that's why I'm saying there's so much information that will help us to navigate, which will help our consumers to navigate through all this stuff. So, you know what, that's a point, Rose, that I'm going to, you know, when we're done this meeting, I'll ask the Patrick Pichette, which is, and Mark LaFrance, who's in charge of Realtor.ca, to find out if they've heard this, and maybe circle back to you to find out.
That would be great. Thank you.
Good. And thank you for sharing that. So, you know, we talked about reputation. We've talked about the technology aspect of it, advocacy. We also put out a real-time magazine, and that first issue, it's a quarterly magazine, and the first issue was rolled out in April. The second one is coming out in June. It's a hard copy magazine. It kind of looks like this, for those of you that may have seen it. It was delivered to all the offices, but it's also online. There's an online format, and it's great information. It focuses on three main ideas: business, industry, and homes. Great articles. You can look at those. Anything that CREA puts out on our behalf to our members can be repurposed, and that it's there for us to use. So, if you're thinking about content, this is great content. It's consumer-centric content, it's realtor content, and it's the industry itself. So look forward for that issue. The next issue that's coming out. The last point I was going to talk about is the national ad campaign. And we changed our focus. We launched this in March, and the focus was, instead of being lost, like you didn't use a realtor, ooh, it was we were born to be realtors, and it's the one with the dollhouse and the young girl with her little sister, and then it goes into the future and she's a realtor, and same with the doghouse and the little boys. So if you've seen it or haven't seen it, again, you can go on the CREA website and you can look at that. It's got tremendous response. We actually rolled it out. It was coming out, I think, March 17th, which was just at the beginning of the pandemic, right beginning of the crisis. And we made a decision at the board of directors that we had to run these ads, but we ran a reduced amount of spots, and we switched all of our media buy into the fall. And the reason that we had to run some of these ads, we were able to cancel the TSN, the Sportsnet, because they weren't airing any of live sporting, so it was easy to say, well, we're canceling. But there were some commitments and contracts that we had entered into, because you have to buy the media before you roll things out in times in advance there. And the penalties would have been excessive, like $1 million, sometimes plus. So we ran the minimum amount of spots, and the buy-in now, the major buy is going to be when this pause in business is lifted, and we're going to be buying in, doubling down in the fall market. And so as people are coming out, and as more interest is coming back, and some sense of this new normal is back, that's when these ads are going to be penetrating the market. So if you haven't seen the ad, we've shared that ad. It's not salesy. It's a feel-good ad. It's about, we were born to do this. We're professionals. We live this this profession, and it's been very well received. I think, as far, I said I'd be talking 10 to 15 minutes. I can't believe I've been over half an hour, so I apologize for that. Basically, communicate at all levels. We've done a great job with all our partners, with your association, with other local associations, but we need to hear feedback. This is your association at the national level. And so whatever feedback we can have, we're open to hearing where things are not working out well, on advocacy, and to your point, Rose, about the open house. Anything like that helps, and we'll circle back. We will find out what's going on and why this is happening, and report back to you. But this is your association, our association, and together we're going to only make it better.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to open up to questions.
Sure.
So anybody having any questions, just use the little raise hand icon, or if you're feeling a little shy this morning, you didn't feel like brushing your hair, you can just use the chat, type out your question, and I'll read it on your behalf. So go ahead and start thinking and get it in there. And Costa, I'll get the ball rolling, because apparently I have lots of questions this morning.
And Rose, just if members or whoever's on doesn't want to ask it now, they can send it to you, and just send it off to me. I promise, whatever questions you have, if you can't think of them right now, look, it's not a one-time shot. We're here. So
yeah, perfect. So I have to ask for myself, what does the future of real estate look like with gatherings and stuff like that, restrictions, specifically things like conferences? Like, do you see that coming back anytime soon, or you think it's just we've moved into this virtual world and that's it now?
So, that's such a great question. I'm going to say, for the immediate future, I can't see in-meeting or in-person meetings happening from short of a vaccine. I don't think, even if some associations, like the National Association of Realtors, are making their decisions. So they canceled the NAR mid-year conference, which is in Washington. They canceled quite a few meetings that I was to attend with them, where we were supposed to get together, CREA and NAR. Now they're going to let us know, I believe by end of this week, by Friday or by Monday, what they're doing with the National Association of Realtors November New Orleans conference. And it may be that they may cancel. I mean, we don't know, but we'll find out very soon. Again, short of a vaccine, it's not just the association leaders that are making these calls. You have to think about you yourself or realtors, or as consumers. So if you turn on the open house feature, I don't know how many consumers would be comfortable just because they're opening that up, that they'd want to be in a house with 40 other people that they don't know, going through an open house. So I don't think it'll get back to normal. I think it will get back to it, and slowly it's opening. As I said, Manitoba's open, and they have restrictions and parameters as to how to conduct it. They're pretty restrictive, but you know what? They're allowing it. So we'll get those in-person things going. Conferences and meetings, I don't know if, again, short of a vaccine, but even post-pandemic, let's go to that question. Look, virtual technology has been great, and it's been an asset for us navigating through this while we're in this pandemic. Nothing replaces an in-person meeting. Nothing replaces building a relationship, and it can only happen in person with your client, realtor to client, realtor to consumer, colleague to colleague, board of director to board of director, committee to committee, at all levels. There's nothing that replaces that. One thing that we've learned from this, and again, I kind of touched on it on the outset of this meeting, is we're in a crisis and a pandemic, but you know what? We found a way to exploit the technologies to actually have more engagement with members, more meaningful meetings, because I can tell you that I have been probably, even with this group, over 5,000 members on a video call, which never would have happened this early into a chair's position, because just the restrictions on travel. I mean, I was in a meeting out west. I was in a meeting in Montreal. I was in a meeting. I've covered all the Maritimes and Toronto. There's no way I could have, sometimes in the same day. So we're exploiting these technologies. These technologies will stay. What I think is, look, if we have to have 5 meetings a year on a committee, maybe 2 of them can be virtual, and then 3 of them could be in person, because there's so much heavy lifting and there's so much better when you're in the in-person. But this is sort of opening up opportunities for us to say, you know what, let's embrace these technologies. Let's don't get rid of them post-pandemic. So I don't know about conferences right away, but I don't think the way of conferences is ever going to go away. There's something about that engagement where you can, your pack days, for our Canadian contingent, getting together, that will come back. When we're able to, there will be a definite need, and I'm sure that people will sign up for it. It's just, I think, this short term until we get over this pandemic. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, once again, CREA had to jump into action and be the first conference to transition very quickly to a virtual platform, right, with the AGM and your swearing in. So that's why I thought I'd ask you, because it happened really quickly. Outside of that, I think I'm tapped out for questions. I'll give it one last call. Anybody else have any questions for Costa? All right, seeing none. Everybody who's tuned into this call right now, you're going to get an email with a poll survey. Please make sure you're filling that out and getting it back to us for feedback, so that we know what you guys want, what you want more of, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you thought of Costa behind his back. So make sure you're clicking in there and filling that out and getting that back to us. Costa, any closing remarks before we let you go?
No, you know what? Again, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for this opportunity. Know that we're only moving the needle when we get feedback and engagement from all of you. This is your association. I mean, this is, and this year I'm chair, and in 10 months I'm not going to be chair. I mean, realtor, I'm in London, and so collectively, if you see something that isn't working out, let us know. We take it in the constructive criticism way that it's meant. And we will do our best to make sure that we make things better and move the needle in the right direction. And that only happens with engagement. So I'll leave that open. If you think of anything, any one of you, reach out to your team, and you can send it to me, and we'll circle back for sure.
Thank you so much. So Costa, I'm going to let you leave this meeting and, join a meeting in Montreal next or wherever you are in the world. And then I'm going to ask the members to stay on and see if they have any questions for me.
Great.
So thank you very
Rose.
much. It was great seeing you. Say hi to Mary for me.
Well, take care. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Costa.
All right. Any questions for me, for Felicia, for Bria at this time from anybody? Quiet crowd.
No questions, Rose. Just a comment again. Thanks very much for organizing this. There's always a little something to be learned and gained. So I appreciate all your efforts, Felicia, Zach's, all of that. Tess, the same thing. So just thanks for continuing to do it.
And thanks for tuning in every week. I like having more than one people. So you see on the screen here, Sean is crashing my screen. They can't hear you.
Oh, why not?
You have a little poll on the screen. Click yes, yes, no, 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 whatever makes you happy. And thank you very much for tuning in.